What's the Diego Acosta problem?
It's, I don't know if you want to call it a rant or a TED Talk.
You mean the Lucho Acosta problem?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Not Diego. I don't know why I wrote Diego.
Yeah. Woo. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.
Third Degree the Podcast is brought to you by listeners like you. If you enjoy Third Degree the Podcast or any of our coverage on thirddegree.net or our social media work, why not join us at patreon.com/third degree. Give us a little support, whatever level you might like to lend a helping hand. And if you join us at the Three Amigos level, you can join our terrific Discord community and all the great fans there. thirddegree.net, patreon.com/third degree. Thanks again for your support.
Well, hello there, North Texas soccer curious aficionado person type fan. Welcome to Third Degree, the podcast, where we talk about things not just Football Club Dallas anymore, hence the new open. Hey, there he is, the good Dan Crooke. Howdy, Dan.
That was an incredibly AI-like introduction there.
I'm impressed you could tell the difference.
Yeah, sometimes it's difficult.
What if I have been replaced with AI Peter?
That would explain the positivity of late.
True.
Perhaps.
And there he is, your hero, my hero, everybody's hero, editor, founder, thirddegree.net. Original soccer influencer himself, Buzz Carrick. Come in, Buzz.
I do appreciate your attempt to try to spread out the open with the whole Metro, since there's 4 or 5 teams and counting. We're heading towards 7 or 8 pro teams here. So.
Yeah, but Buzz,
yeah,
you told me to.
I asked you if we should.
Is that what it was? I thought you shoved me up against the wall and said, "Listen, damn it."
I said, "Should we think about it? Should we talk about it?" And the next week you were like, "You just did it." And I was like, "Oh, okay, great, cool. Let's try it. If we hate it, we can go back to the old one."
I'll come up with my. I was always very proud of the FC Dallas Curious thing because I just thought it was really funny, and it stuck. So I feel like I got to come up with something else for like North Texas soccer aficionado or something like that.
Yeah, the trouble with the FC Dallas Curious was I couldn't put it on a shirt.
I did.
I know I did too, and then they got mad about that, so I had to take it down.
Of course
MLS
they did.
Not FC Dallas. MLS did, actually, strangely enough.
In fact, I still sell FC Dallas Curious shirts that you can buy at a location. If anybody would like to own one, I will gladly sell you one inexpensively. Please DM me or send me a note, and I will shoot you the link.
That location is the trunk of Peter's car at Moss Park.
That's right. Would you also like a watch?
DVD, maybe?
Yes. Oh, listen to the good spirits and tones and vibe of this podcast, because it is a victory podcast, everybody, as Dallas goes to Miami and somehow takes a lead, goes down 2 goals, comes back to tie it, and then wins the game improbably, giving Miami their first league defeat of the season, while Messi and Suarez sit on the sideline drinking some mysterious beverage out of coconut-shaped drinking bowls or whatever it was. I'm very curious as to what Messi was deliciously drinking and then refilling into that cup that they were drinking out of. Do you wonder that thing yourself?
It's mate.
Yeah, it's this thing Leggett drinks, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, it's like it's a big South American thing.
Oh, is it? What is that?
It's like a herbal, caffeine-y type drink.
Interesting. Okay.
Like a tea.
It looks like it comes with a fancy straw, too. Like at the beginning of the game, they were showing him, and all you could see was the tip of the straw and the way that. And I thought, what if it's one of those crazy bendy straws that we used to have as kids that was like all looped up on itself that you thought was cool to use? And maybe I still do.
Silly straw?
Yeah, is that what that's called? A silly straw?
Yeah.
I think. What if they had panned out and suddenly Messi was drinking out of a silly straw? That would have been quite a fun scene.
Yeah, apparently that straw is part of the bit with that round. I mean, I never had one. I don't know what it is. Obviously, it's a cultural question.
Have you had one, Dan?
No.
Oh, okay. Well,
no, I take my tea
like dirty brown English water that it is. All right, so obviously Dallas got the advantage of Miami having to rest everybody, essentially, as they were coming off the defeat to Vancouver and have to play them in the away leg in Miami coming up later this week. So Dallas benefited from not only getting the extra day because the game was on Sunday instead of Saturday, but also because Mascherano decided to swap out 10 players on that. And I was counting up, Buzz, and we might as well just get this out of the way. The number of guys that have played more than 4 games this season, of that 11, were 4 of them. There were 2 guys that had yet to start a game. Fafa Pico's only started twice prior to this game. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
And a couple guys that had started 3 games. So everybody else, it was a pretty raw Inter Miami. But Dallas gets the business done.
Yeah, you have to go into this game, recognizing that that's the situation. And so there's a slight caveat or taint or whatever you want to say about the fact that they rotated
whoa.
the bottom of their roster.
Did you say taint?
Yeah. Doesn't always mean what you think it means.
Wait, Dan's the tiebreaker here. Dan, is taint an unusual term to use for describing what Buzz is describing? I want your judgment.
Completely appropriate.
Okay, all right.
You wrong. Just have a dirty mind.
I guess it's not weird.
Not weird at all. So,
continue. Sorry,
that colors the game for sure. But one of the things we always talk about with Inter Miami is that their dudes are better than most everybody else's dudes because a lot of people take a lot less money to go play there. But you got to recognize that they rotated. On the other hand, Dallas was trailing by 2 goals in the second half and came back and won, and that's only the 5th time in club history that's happened. So this is a monumental comeback, regardless of who you're playing against. For you to be down and come back in the second half like that, 5 times in the history of this club, and it's the first time since 2011. So you can celebrate it, with the understanding that it's not against what Miami's real team looks like. But you get the schedule you get. They're in the Champions League. This is what happens when you're in the Champions League, the CONCACAF Champions League, is that you have to play games shorthanded. Which is why teams that are usually at the top of the Champions League and go deep in the Champions League struggle a little bit. But this is also their first loss of the year. So it's a pretty monumental win for FC Dallas, which is clearly a team that's not as good as Miami. So you take the victory and you take all the positives from this game and you can be really excited about getting a result. I mean, look, because winning on the road is hard, period, at all, let alone coming back from 2 goals down.
Dan, I'm interested in your observations overall of the game, but I'm going to assume you'd like to start with the same thing you noted quickly right off the bat as I did. This was the rare novel MLS game where both teams are wearing their primary kits, and how awesome that is.
Yeah, unless you have an issue with Reds, I suppose.
True.
Yeah, I did see somebody say, screw the colorblind like 10 seconds into the game. And I was like, well, yeah, that's fair.
It did make me wonder if Dallas's kit was all red, like it normally is, what would they have worn in that game?
They would have worn blue and Miami would have worn their black kit. They would have kept the light and dark.
They would have. Well, no. If Dallas's primary kit was all red instead of what it is now, and they still had the same.
Well, that's what I mean. They would still keep light and dark, but they would flip it.
He's saying Dallas is secondary, which he's calling blue.
Oh, that's right. You call it blue. I call it white. Okay. Sorry.
Either way, both teams would wear their away kit.
Okay. Yeah,
they've relaxed that dark white structure a little bit. The pink though, that might be so light that
Steve Davis.
You can't wear the blue, white, gray, whatever the Dallas one is. You probably can't wear that, Dan's right, against that pink because the pink is so light. But you could definitely wear that blue white against other soft colors. It's not quite as rigid dark light as it would be in the past, and we've seen some dumb color combinations of late, so it's hard to say what would have happened.
All right, I apologize for a second time. I digress. Dan, please continue with your observations overall. Bad at this.
The obvious first thing is FC Dallas hadn't scored in the first half an hour of any game this season, and 8 minutes in, there's Shaq Moore. It's,
of all people.
Normally it's obviously FC Dallas makes a habit of going down and coming back, but yeah, we're taking the lead early on.
I was impressed by the quality of that banger, by the way. He got full Shaq Moore behind that.
He got everything behind it, and it was, perfect technique. Lean over the ball, not lean back and sky it.
I think I was most pleased about that was that the commentators who get to have a meeting with the coaches on, late in the week, and the coaches are often much more candid, and they flat out said that Quill told them that they needed more from Shaq Moore, that he's been really conservative and really defensive in his focus, and they needed much more offensively from him. So I was actually really interested in hearing that.
Did you guys know that Shaq Moore is originally from the Miami area?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he only played for FC Dallas for a season.
No, I knew that, but I didn't realize he originally was from the Miami area. That was news to me. I read that.
I'm pretty sure that I knew that.
I didn't.
I'm going to add that out if I'm wrong.
How convenient, since you're the editor of said podcast.
Google says he was born in Powder Springs, Georgia, if that helps.
He's a man of the world.
He is.
All right, so the game... all right, so Buzz, I made a point to count. And I'm trying to come up with a name for this stat, but I can't figure out what it is, because it's the one thing about this team that is driving me nuts, which is its oddity. The goal in the 8th minute is a perfect example of what I'm talking about here, where Dallas gains possession in Miami's half of the field by forcing a turnover, and they go on to score a goal because they're really good at kind of doing some short passing and intermixing, and ultimately the ball pops out to Moore, who bangs it in. But prior to that moment, anytime Dallas was trying to bring the ball out from their own half of the field, either A, through regaining possession in their half of the field, or B, a restart from Martin Paz, like a punt or a goal kick or whatever, the team at that particular moment was 0 for 6 in this new stat I'm coming up with of getting the ball past midfield and then completing one pass, at least one pass, in the opposing or in their attacking half of the field. And that's what and as I go through the game, as I was telling you guys after, I can't remember what the total was. I think in the first half, they were 6 of 22.
Oh, that's what that was. You gave no context for it. You just threw out some numbers. I was like,
I know
what does this mean?
Yeah, well, you probably missed the earlier explanation in the thread. But yeah, so by the end of the first half, Dallas had only successfully crossed midfield and completed at least one pass 6 out of 22 times. But anytime they win the ball in the attacking half, they're pretty okay. They could do some things. But that's what's driving me nuts about this team.
Yeah, this is something I think we're going to talk about a little bit more later too. But this team has a real problem in terms of its build out, being able to play build out, get across midfield and build out, and continue with possession. It's like it basically can't do it. The central mids that they're running are basically all sort of ball winning sixes. Even Show has a lot more 6 quality than he does 8 or linking quality. So there's not a lot of like build through the middle of the park. And Quill's been talking about this since the season started, right? That idea of like, you got to be brave to play in the mix in the middle. If you go to the right, you have Ibiaga, who's not a particularly great passer. These days you have Kaique on that side of the central midfield, who's a 19-year-old kid and is not really a passer or progressive dribbler, either one. And then up in front of him, you have...
That seems like a pretty bad pair of things not to be able to do as a starting MLS player.
Especially because you're playing him more as an 8 than a 6. So, and then up front on that side is Anderson Julio, who's a vertical bomber and not a dribbler or passer, that kind of guy. And then over on that side also is Shaq Moore, who is not any of those qualities. So going up the right side is basically non-existent. And as a consequence of that, that means they can only build up on the left. And if you saw this game, and the reason you could build up on the left is because Show, who's the most competent sort of ball handling linking mid that they're currently playing, is over on that side on top of Nolan Norris, who's the best passing defender they have. And Lucho Acosta, who wants to play as a second striker, always drifts out to that side. So what you're ending up is a team that could only build out on one side of the team. And the whole shape, if you look at it, I did my breakdown, I showed it. The whole shape is like shifted over, and then Shaq Moore has like a whole half the field by himself. So Miami recognizes this, and you can tell they have a good enough coaching staff to recognize it, because they immediately like double teamed everybody over on the FC Dallas left out of the field. And so Dallas couldn't build out at all. They turned Nolan Norris over a couple times. They turned Show over a couple times. Dallas could not build forward at all in this game. And it's a combination of they don't have the players to do it. And also the other team recognizes in this case, the one place they can do it and snuffed it out. So you're right. It leaves them as a one-dimensional team trying to play verticality wise and without a lot of verticality. So it's not good.
I don't know what we want to call this stat, but I forgot I actually wrote it down. They were 6 of 27 in the first half and 7 of 22 in the second half. And again, this isn't official because sometimes the camera cuts away when the ball's being progressed or I wasn't paying attention. So, but I think as a fundamental idea, my numbers are correct. So
yeah, it's just not the nature of the way this team is built and plays. And admittedly, it's a problem because it makes them one-dimensional. And we know it's true, and Quill knows it's true because he's been talking about it since week one. It's not a new problem, and it's not one that the current personnel, pending recovery and health changes, is going to be able to fix.
Dan, was there any part of the midfield play, at least early in the game, that you enjoyed or thought was working?
Oh, Crash, putting me on the spot there. Ramiro was keeping himself busy. Kayike seemed to come into it a little bit later on. Sorry, I'm having a real problem remembering the start of the game. That first half was a difficult one to watch.
You know, one of the symptoms of this problem is the team trumpeted out a couple of guys today, with some stat lines. And one of the guys that they trumpeted was Ramiro. And they talked about he had 22 passes into the final third. They had talked about he had 10 final third entries, which is slightly different than just a pass in general. 86 touches and 65 passes. Well, the volume of touches and passes isn't necessarily good by itself. But he had some possession wins and some tackles. Those parts are nice. We like that part. But the misleading part is the idea of these passes into the final third and these passes with progression. It's like, as I talked about, because Shaq Moore's over on the side by himself, he quite frequently is quite high on that outside. So a lot of Ramiro's progressive passes into the final third are just outlets literally horizontally to Shaq Moore. So it's not like the ball. So a lot of the things that he's doing, it's not finding Acosta. It's not finding Farrington in this case. It's finding Shaq Moore out on the outside. So, sometimes the stats can be a little bit misleading in that sense. Now, I think defensively, Ramiro is doing what he's supposed to do, which is sit in there and clog things up. He's doing a pretty decent job on that. So I don't want to complain about that too much. But when you watch him play, he really is limited in his mobility and his range. Kayike and Show both cover up a lot of ground in there for him, which is why you're forced to play that 3 players across there that you really are. So again, it's like there are moments where you like what you're seeing in midfield, and there are players that occasionally you like what they're doing, but it's usually only a one-dimensional facet. Like Kayike is doing a lot of defensive work, but he actually has less progression than Ramiro. So there's not, and Show had a really bad game on this game. So like those 3 guys.
Well, that's kind of why I asked the question, is because this is the first time Show has started this season. It's the first time we've seen that combination 3 of Ramiro, Show, and Kayike. And I, just to be honest, I was like, oh, this is a mess. This is not working in any way, shape, or form.
It was a little better against Minnesota than it was in this game, but it definitely is not good. Like you're missing half.
Wait, did those 3 guys start in the Minnesota game?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought this was Show's first start.
No, he started a couple games.
That's right. He was in the Minnesota game. Okay.
This was the worst of his games since he's come back. But again, like I talked about, Miami rotated and shifted a lot of guys into the spaces he was trying to occupy, and tightened up that area of the field. He's not good enough to like lead the team and be that fulcrum guy. He's fine as an extra guy. It's like, if you got him in there with a legit next to him, he looks a lot better. So there's just not a lot happening in terms of Dallas in terms of being able to play progression through their midfield at all. It's all very one-dimensional right now.
Well, going up early was great, and it was a good scene per Dan's stat note. But 8 minutes later, we get our first, this was kind of the first time I'd seen Nolan Norris in his youthful inexperience get the better of him, as he got absolutely nutmegged and beaten by Mr. Frey out on the wing, who then ended up beating Ramiro on the touchline. And then Havoc in the box, and then, of course, of all people in the world, Fafa Pico pokes it in at the far corner and the far post. And
this was the big problem for Dallas in the first 60 minutes of the game. Because they played this very narrow shape, the Miami outside backs were having a field day. Both outside backs were just destroying them up and down the field. And it didn't matter who went out there on Frey. That guy torched everybody for the first 60 minutes. He had 2 assists and was playing havoc. And he got a little lucky on the bounce on when he nutmegged Nolan, but you're right. Then he ran right past Ramiro and he waited and waited and waited. And finally, Urhoghide had to come to him, and that let him then play the ball across the middle to the wide open guy right in the middle, who was coming out of midfield, not tracked. And then Paz makes 2 great saves, and the ball bounces off of Shaq back. And then, maybe it was then on his own goal, but either way, Shaq didn't help him. And then Fafa poked it in.
Yeah, I wondered if that original ball was over the line. When they did the replay, it kind of looked like.
It's close. You would have needed a goal line camera to really know, and they weren't going to overturn it.
It was 1-1 either way, right?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Fafa, who hates FC Dallas, of course, was there.
I saw you exchanging. Somebody asked you that question on Twitter earlier today. Just for context, share with people why Fafa Pico so clearly hates Dallas.
Well, some of it is not necessarily FC Dallas's fault. Some of it is some stuff that happened to him off field, up in the North Dallas Frisco area with certain civic entities. I don't want to talk about any real details because I'm not privy to any real details, but I've heard about it over and over and over again in the context of Fafa Pico. And the other part of it is just
you mean like he got pulled over by the cops or something?
He's spoken about it a few times.
Yeah, but it's not my place to go deep into why he's mad about that. You can imagine as a young, paid fairly well black guy driving around in North Dallas, what might have been the issue. I don't know that we need to do a deep dive into the social commentaries about that kind of thing, but you can imagine really quickly what some of the things might happen to him that made him upset and not like the city of Dallas in general. And then on top of that, he has a couple of times, but for sure in Dallas, he had a pretty decent season, statistically speaking, in a bad FC Dallas team. At the end of the year, they basically just unceremoniously dumped him. And so he's pretty annoyed about that. He didn't feel like he got treated with much respect. So, those 2 things add up to him not liking FC Dallas very much and having another gear when he plays against them.
Can I seem to recall that he was not very good, borderline terrible here in Dallas.
Well, I'd have to Google his numbers, but I remember him having a good team. A bad team, excuse me.
I remember he had a couple of good moments, but I seem to remember us just kind of consistently.
He was solid enough, but I feel like a lot of people expected Fabian Castillo.
Yeah, that season was a pretty bad season. That's 2020.
The COVID season?
That's And so
that's why we don't remember him, because we didn't get to go to the games.
He started 11 of 18 games, and I think he had 3 goals. So it's not an epic season, but that was a season where I don't think anybody really had a very good offensive season. I just remember him being really surprised and caught off guard because he thought he played pretty well, and I don't think it was an amazing season by any stretch on his part, but it was not a bad season.
He'd also come out of that Philadelphia system where he couldn't play as a winger. He kind of had to reshape himself into a bit of a wide forward and, complete change of role, going back to being a traditional winger. So, yeah, who would want to be in that position, honestly?
Well, what is that, like his 4th or 5th goal against Dallas since he got let go?
And you can see him, he really celebrates too when it's against FC Dallas. So
he hates FC Dallas.
Yeah, keeping in mind that Frank O'Hara led that team in scoring with 7, which I'll tell you how the season was. And then Ryan Hollingshead had 4 and Santi Mascara had 4, and then Fafa had 3.
God, Santiago Mascara is a name I hadn't thought of in years.
Yeah. So, I definitely remember Fafa being caught off guard and be like, wait, what? You're getting rid of me? He couldn't believe it. So it's
Well, the game suddenly turns on its head as Dallas goes from being up 1-0 to tied 1-1. And just about 10 minutes later, Mr. Frey once again, man, that is an exquisitely good cross into the box.
It is.
And then, of course, we had a Ibby moment.
Yeah.
Ibby was way too easily defeated by starting his very first game, and who taps it in.
An 18-year-old kid.
As I have written down here, by some unknown guy that I've never seen before, just shows up and taps it in. Ubano, is that his name? I can't remember off the top of my head.
It's something like that. Yeah. He's
Bando.
Obando. Yeah. I was going to say Obando, but that would have been wrong. Obando. He is a kid with some potential, but they rotated heavily,
Yeah, that's classic striker 101 right there. Just run off the shoulder of the defender and he'll never know you're coming.
Yeah, it's totally. And maybe he just lost him completely and was 3 yards behind him and just simple. And it was a beautiful cross, you're right, splitting the center backs.
And then you have Paz has a really weird moment of he goes to come out and then he stops and he doesn't really know what he's doing and he falls on the ground and he watches it go in.
This team is terrible about defending crosses, and part of it is Paz. He's not great with crosses. You'll notice that they have him punching the ball a lot more this year rather than trying to grab it. As a result, he's gotten better at that part, but they're still not very good at it.
You remember the Real Salt Lake game when Collodi dived out and punched that cross away and everyone went nuts for it? Same exact position.
What is going on in your Discord, by the way, with your Discord subscribers, Buzz? Because there was some significant anti-Martin Paz commentary going on.
Fans are emotional, man. They just, they got excited.
Like things like, well, if they could get a few $1 million for him, I wouldn't mind seeing him getting shipped out of here. Like, are you effing kidding me? Are you effing kidding me?
It's an emotional game, man. Come on,
you people shock me sometimes.
I did have to close the browser tab when I saw 1.8 million.
Did somebody really say that?
That's a little low. Yeah, that's a little low. Hey, it's all right. It's okay.
Good grief.
That's a little low. But people in the heat of the moment, man, in the middle of battle, people say things that they don't really mean. They backpedaled later.
Oh, did they?
Oh, yeah. It got backpedaled. For sure.
I hope so. All right. Very good. All right. So now Dallas is down 2-1, and Dallas is really having a hard time regaining possession. They keep turning the ball over again and again, way too easily. Unforced errors, just bad passing, weird stuff.
Lucho Acosta had 7 blown receptions. 7. That's incredible.
Is this where we insert Buzz's hype? Oh, you want to save that till later?
That's for later.
Okay.
That's a totally different Lucho Acosta problem. We'll bring
Diego Acosta.
Yeah, I mean, I wish they had a Diego Acosta problem.
The one that didn't play for Chelsea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, speaking of Martin, I don't know what the Discord members said when Martin saved everybody's ass when the Dallas defense held way too high line, fell asleep when that guy ran through one-on-one, and they all just stood there waiting for the whistle to blow that was never going to come because he was onside. And Martin saves on a one-on-one and keeps it from being a lot more than it was.
Yeah, I don't know if I can statistically back it up, but I feel like Martin Paz bails them out of, depending on the season, 5, 6, 7 games a year, that he'll bail them out with these monster. Was it 2 years ago? Then when he had that string of like 7, 8, 9 saves, like back to back over like a 2-month period. I mean, it was incredible. So
yeah,
when the moment's on, shot stopping, balls over the top, the guy's got phenomenal ability in a lot of areas. There's a couple of areas that he's somewhat deficient in. That's why he's in MLS. The crosses and the feet. I mean, those are 2 big ones. Don't get me wrong, but the shot stopping ability, and he's much better than anybody else they have available right now. Which is not to say that there is a price for everybody, of course. Like if the right number came in, you would sell him, but I don't think that's going to be happening. So I think he's going to be here for a fair bit.
Well, we get to halftime. It's 2-1. Dallas is licking their wounds. We go to the start of the second half. No substitutes, not quite yet, but it didn't take very long before Miami got in a long ball in behind, and Shaq Moore is left to try to do everything he can to keep him from doing something before he gets a red card for a dog. So lets him go. And suddenly now it's 3-1 and all seems lost, Buzz.
Well, that was a really awkward defensive moment from Shaq Moore. He's not a very good defender. That was an
Thank God he scored a goal.
Thank God, yeah. It was an Ole defense, and then he got all grabby and huggy, and I couldn't believe he didn't get a card, even though they scored. And then their I think it's their central mid crashed forward and snipped the ball loose and fired it in. And
I would not have been surprised if that guy had misfired, if they hadn't scored, if the ref wouldn't have gone back and called the PK because he was still holding him inside the box. I would not have been surprised if retroactively he had gone back and called.
Yeah, the interesting thing is it's not the goal scorer that he was grabbing, but it easily could have been called a denial of a goal scorer. Like I would have to go back and look at exactly where other guys were to see if he really was the last guy, but it sure looked like he was damn close to me.
I would make the argument that the whole reason why the other guy got to hit the ball in the first place is because Shaq Moore was holding the guy that was trying to get to the ball.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah. It was not a good defensive moment.
No. And then Eric Quill in the hat said, I've seen enough of this, even though I can't really see much because my hat's too low on my head. I know I've seen enough of this. And he makes all the substitutions. And suddenly, magically, wonderfully, the game takes a big turn. And Buzz, you got a whole thing as to what happened.
Oh, man. Yeah, listen, there have been some times where earlier in the year, for sure, where Quill has made some bad subs, but this one is magical. And basically, the change of a formation, the two subs allow them to go to a 3-4-3, and it's not just any 3-4-3. It's literally the one from last year. It's the narrow front line one where you have 2 10s underneath your high striker. And as I said before, the Miami outside backs were just absolutely destroying Dallas up and down the field. And we're going to the 3-4-3. You put 2 wing backs out there, and then you have an extra center back that immediately snuffs out the thing that Miami had been killing them on, which is that wide play. The wide zones were completely empty, and all of a sudden there's guys there. You've taken away Shaq Moore's defensive liability by making him a wing back instead of a fullback, right? You put Anderson Julio, who's not a wing back, but you put him over the other side, and he's doing the work because he can run up and down field all day. So he gets over there on the other side. And then you bring in Pedrinho as a 10. And now Lucho Acosta is a 10, but Lucho Acosta is playing as a second striker. Again, we're going to come back to this. And he likes to go left all the time. He's not playing as an underneath real 10. So you bring in Pedrinho as a real underneath 10, and all of a sudden the whole thing's clicking and working. And so Dallas is, because you have Shaq Moore now taking away defensive responsibility, if Anderson Julio on the left, all of a sudden you now have the vertical play that you need running off of, in this case, Logan Farrington and past Acosta. All of a sudden, this is the tactic that Quill actually wants. So it completely changes the game. That tactic does. And then, of course, the next goal, which comes from a defender, but his mentality there when he's clearly targeting the guy covering him and points at him afterwards, and then the guy immediately gets yanked because he got whooped by Urhoghide. That mentality, the team fed off of it. So like that the tactical change and then Urhoghide's mentality changed the game completely and allowed Dallas to come back and win. It's remarkable.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the back and forth between Falcone and Urhoghide.
It was awesome. Yeah.
Falcone was giving him the crazy face stare down kind of thing as they were trying to jostling around and shoving back and forth. I thought that was great. And Urhoghide, I thought you said in your instant replay or instant reactions that he headed the ball in. I thought he kicked it in. I thought he volleyed it in.
He heads the first one. He heads it, and then it bounces off of the defender and drops to his feet. And then he shoots it, and it's a deflected shot.
He took
may have called
the classic floor shot.
Yeah, it's a bit of a crap goal, but that whole exchange is fun, not necessarily just because Urhoghide scored. It was fun even before that. The way those guys were jawing and fighting, it was so much. That was just entertaining soccer between two guys that are pretty decent players.
Did you notice that Falcone went up to him after the game and they were exchanging pleasantries like, hey, man, no hard feelings kind of stuff?
Oh, no, I didn't, but that's awesome. That's just, guys that can bring it like that on the field and then the game's over, it can be like, hey, good job, good game like that. You got to respect that.
That makes the game fun.
Okay. So Dallas now is back in some breathing room, 3-2. It was a great moment. And then, like you said, Buzz, the game just kind of finished. He puts Pedrinho on, who we've all kind of spent a lot of time on this podcast crapping on. Plays, man, that ball he played to Julio Anderson over the top could not have been more perfect. It was Pedrinho perfecto.
Pedrinho's a very streaky player. He's very hot and cold. There are games where he's just absolutely trash. And you're like, why is... Probably the Minnesota game, actually. It's like, why is he even out there? And then you put him out there and he has a game like this. He played just 33 minutes and had 28 touches. So like 1 touch a minute, but 3 shot creating actions, 2 goal creating actions, had his own goal, had an assist, should have had another assist on a 5th goal and didn't get it. A couple of progressive passes and carries. It's just like he was in the zone on this game and he allowed them to play the way Quill wants to play, which with Moore on one side and Anderson Julio on the other side, playing off of this high fighting tough striker that today was Logan Farrington. So it's just the front 5 all of a sudden worked the way it's supposed to work. And it was fun to watch and it was exciting to watch. And, you give Pedrinho, I give Pedrinho a lot of credit for the way he played, but it really is the tactical change that made it happen.
Yeah, I also want to give full credit to Julio Anderson for that finish, because not only does he have to collect the ball that is played to him so well, but then he takes at least one, if not two, really good touches before he just slots it into the far post. And I mean, how many times in this league have you watched somebody in that exact same situation, blow it into the stand or out into the Gulf or whatever, or miss it wide or hit it right at the keeper or whatever? So many times. I mean, that happens more times than not. So to see Anderson finish that way was pretty delightful.
And he was playing two ways. He had 4 shot creating actions, 3 for 5 for take-ons, which is a huge thing they've missed. Take-ons and beaten guys. Progressive carries, progressive dribbles. He took the ball into the penalty area 3 times. He also had 3 intercepts and 3 tackles. So it's like the guy's playing two-way game. It's just really nice to see. When you have a guy like Anderson Julio who's playing the way that you want to play, and it fits the mold you want to play, and you can actually build the tactic around the way he plays, it works. It's great.
And then in the 81st minute, Dallas, on one of the rare times they get past half field, they actually play out of their own half and make it all the way down. And Logan Farrington, with a little bit of extra Beaver effort, saves the ball at the touchline and plays it back towards the spot. And Pedrinho finishes, and somehow, inexplicably, unbelievably, Dallas is leading this game after being down 3-1, 4-3 in the entire Miami outfit. And then the classic shot of Messi's face, just kind of like shaking his head like, oh my God, this is awful. I can't believe I need more of the drink that you guys were giving me, as Dallas is leading 4-3.
Dan, this is a typical Logan Farrington never give up play, isn't it? When he just does not stop going until the very end.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fact that, we always see people kind of make that token, it's going out of play, but I'll have a little swing at it or whatever. Like, yeah, I mean, he stopped it on the touchline, on the end line. I mean, that's quality. And it also, you mentioned earlier about Miami breaking and the whole FC Dallas defense stopping and just expecting Paz to save. Same thing happened on that cutback. All the Miami defenders went, wait, what? No, that's a corner. That's a goal kick. It's got to be. Bang, goal.
Yeah. Again, credit to Pedrinho for continuing the run. I mean, he could have stopped running and not followed Logan in, but he did. You're supposed to follow your striker like that coming out of zone 14. So right to the penalty spot. Perfect. And Logan lays it off right outside the goal box. Perfect position. That's how you draw it up. It's nice.
Yep. And then, of course, Pedrinho in added time had that great opportunity to do one of two things: either pass the ball to Mr. Scott to let him tap it in, or finish it himself. And somehow he did neither one of those things. So
he'd have been man of the match if he had.
Boy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
He would have been. But Dallas, unbelievably, there we go. Dallas gets, here we are. We are now, how many games into the season? 11? How many games have they played?
Oh, gosh.
I got to look at this.
A number.
10 games into the season. Here we are, 10 games into the season, and Dallas is undefeated on the road.
This is the most insane stat, because ordinarily a 3-0-3 record would mean you're like one of the best 2 or 3 teams in the whole league. But a 1-3-0 home record would tell you that you're one of the worst teams in the league. So which is it? Is this team really good or really bad?
Well, it's interesting because I'm sitting here looking at the Western Conference, and there are more teams with winning or 500 records on the road than you'd think. So Vancouver is 3-0-2, Portland's 3-1-1, Austin is 2-3-0, Minnesota's 2-1-2, so 500, Colorado's at 500. Dallas is also at 500, 3-0-3. But once you get south of that, there's no team. Yeah, nobody below Dallas has a winning record on the road.
Yeah, over the course of a season, usually, if you have a 500 or better road record in this league, you're usually going to be a really, really good team.
Yeah.
And like it's definitely, 10 games is not quite a third of the season. So that's a decent enough sample size, And on the other side of the coin is, if you only have one win at home, at some point you're going to have to ask questions about like, how good is your team? So like, there's just so many things about this team that are so confusing.
Well, with one win at home, Dallas is only one of 4 teams in the West with only one, or the Galaxy obviously have no wins because they haven't won yet this year. Kansas City, 1 win at home. St. Louis, 1 win at home. And Dallas, 1 win at home. And that is it.
It's crazy.
And there's only 3 teams in the East. And those 3 teams have not won any at home.
Those 3 teams you mentioned are in 12th, 14th, and 15th in the West. They have 10 points or less each. And Dallas has 1 win at home, but yet because it's just this team is a 2-headed monster. It's Jekyll and Hyde. It's like sometimes it looks amazing and sometimes it looks absolutely terrible. And it's really hard to get your mind around it.
It's just, Eric Quill likes to talk about mentality, and it's exactly that. You've got the team that's got the best away record of all 30 teams, but only 3 teams have a worse home record.
Somehow you got to figure out how to bring that road mentality home, and not just be like, "Oh, we're home, we're going to win," because that goal you're not going to.
Well, actually, I guess say 3 teams have a worse home record. Let's put an asterisk on that because Montreal's only played 2 at home.
All right, so Buzz, the win is great, coming back is great, everything is great, but I still possess this weird sense that this team isn't very good in general because of all these kind of inability to be more than just this one kind of thing. And I was wondering this during the game because he just wasn't very good in this game. And then you said, I got this whole thing about Lucho Acosta I want to talk about. And I'm dying to hear it because I'm wondering if what you're about to say is the thing that I've been thinking in my head that I don't want to say out loud.
Okay. It probably will not be, but we'll give it a shot. But just to follow up on what you're saying, remember too that, we're 10 games in, the difference between FC Dallas and second place is 3 points, and FC Dallas and 13th place is 4 points. So like there's this middle pack that's going to
super
compressed still. So it's still too early to really know where this team's going to fit. Okay. So my stance is that FC Dallas has a Lucho Acosta problem, and I'll try and explain it relatively succinctly if I can. You guys remember back when the committee talked about flexibility of players, the versatility of players. They want to have these guys that can do lots of different things. We clearly know that Eric Quill wants to play 4-2-3-1. That's his preferred formation, right? 2 holding mids and then 3 across and then a high striker. It's a formation we've all seen a million times. On top of that, he wants to play it with a very, very vertical component. Get forward in a hurry, not Lucci ball. He doesn't want to have the ball. You can have the ball. We're going to wait for mistakes, and then we're going to get it. And we're going to go. We're not going to be passing it around all the time. So in order to play that shape, that 4-2-3-1, and this comes back to the idea that I think it's important to build your roster with the tactic in mind. And you can relate this back to the fact that, Shaq Moore's not a great defender. They have, a ball winning 6, but they don't really, they're guys that can progress through the middle are Hurt, Leggett, Paxton, some high risk older players. It could come down to the fact that the 4-2-3-1 that Quill wants to play requires 2 attacking, vertical, aggressive flying wings like Anderson Julio, and he only has 1, right? So again, roster things. And the biggest problem that fits into this category of buying a player that doesn't fit the system is Lucho Acosta. Lucho Acosta is a former league MVP. He is a spectacular player. There have been people that have argued that he is, if not the best player this club's had, it's one of the top 5, certainly top 10 in terms of pure talent that this team has. However, he's not a classic 10 or even a modern 10. He plays like an off striker. He plays like Jason Kreis. He wants to be up front next to the other striker, and he plays from the middle to the left wing, and he works that side, right? So if you wanted to use him as a wing, he doesn't have that vertical component that Quill wants to play the way Quill wants to play. If you tried to put him underneath as the central fulcrum, as a 10 that the 4-2-3-1 needs, he's not enough of a two-way player, a defensive player, a pure 10 that has defensive qualities, which you also need, because in that shape, that 10 is part of the 3-man triangle. And if he doesn't do the work, those guys get outnumbered 2-3 in the central midfield. Lucho Acosta is none of those things. So Lucho Acosta, as good as he is a problem that Quill has to solve. It's why he's been trying this 4-3-1-2 tactic, which kind of has worked a little bit, but you still end up with Lucho Acosta playing up next to Musa, and Anderson Julio has to come back and play in as the 10 all the time. If you look at the average positions of those players, game after game after game, Lucho Acosta is not playing as a 10; he's playing as a striker. It's why in this particular game, when he switched to the 3-4-3, that finally allowed him to have the two outside vertical pieces that he wants. And he brought in Pedrinho to be an actual 10 underneath Farrington and Lucho Acosta. So that's why I say Lucho Acosta is actually as good as he is and as exciting as he is, and you paid a lot of money to get him, and so he's going to play. It's a massive, massive problem for Quill to figure out how to use him effectively and not expose his defense and not expose all the other problems that he has on this team. So that's why Lucho's a problem, and that's why you're seeing Quill try all these different tactics that some games are working and some games they're not, depending on the opponent, depending on who has available.
I'm always curious about this when you watch teams being constructed. And this even, you can even relate this back to last year with Zanata and Nico and the center back situation and switching from two center backs to three center backs, and that communication between the coaching staff and the people constructing the team. And this isn't Dallas specific, but again, here we are in another season where the front office went out and got a guy that obviously everybody's super excited about because you say he's a former MLS MVP and he's fun to watch and he's clearly a quality player, but yet you also just hired a coach that I'm assuming Eric doesn't know what to do in that moment because he can't say, no, I don't want Lucho Acosta.
Yeah.
But he also is smart enough as a coach to go, but he doesn't fit my system.
Well, particularly because the owner and the head of soccer operations clearly said, we're going to give you a whole bunch of players that are versatile and can do a lot of good things. You need to figure out how to win with them. That's clearly what their plan is, right?
Sure.
So to me, I'm with you. I think in this league, because of the salary cap, because of the talent level fall off, you clearly need to play a defined way to play. And I've gone into depth about the idea of why playing the tie stinks and you have to play to win at the depth of tying, in fact, in this league, if you want to get ahead, because there's no relegation. So this is just another example of why, and this is the third coach now that's had this problem, right? And not getting the guys that fit the way that he wants to play. And
you mean here in Dallas?
And here in Dallas.
Yeah.
And in order to play the system that you're talking about, even if they before they fired Nico Estevez, the idea was that Alan Velasco was going to come inside, right, and be that 10. Would Alan have been able to play deep enough and be like an actual 10 in a 4-2-3-1? Would he be able to do that and be you almost need what we call that free 8, that De Bruyne kind of guy, that probably a Paxton could do it, maybe a Leggett can do it, but he doesn't have the capability or luxury to do that when your owner and your operations guy just spent $5 million to get a guy. So Quill's having to adapt his system, figure out how to play with what I have, how to make it work with Lucho Acosta on the field, with Petter Musa on the field, with the fact that I only have one wing, the fact that my right back is not particularly good defensively. So it's entirely possible that this 3-4-3 that we just saw with Pedrinho might become something you're going to see a lot more of. Will it be a starting lineup? I don't know. Will you see it a lot more? It's going to be funny that we're going to go back to this shape again.
Yes, we're going to go back to 3 in the back after all of last season.
And they're short of center back. Abubakar really is your only other center back. They have Alvaro Augusto's on the roster, but you don't want to put that guy in an MLS game right now. And
have you seen him play yet, by the way?
Yeah, in North Texas. Yeah.
Is he any good?
He's super raw. He needs a lot of time, in my opinion. I think if you put him in there, you'd be like, holy crap, this guy's terrible. Well, right now he probably would be terrible. So it's he needs a lot of work. There's a reason why he was playing on the U23 team of a second division Portuguese team or whatever it was.
Right.
So, they're in terms of pure roster build, for me, short of center back and still short of center back in terms of basic coverages. You include on top of that you now maybe want to try and play a 3-4-3 when you can. Man, you're looking at some weird sub patterns if somebody gets hurt or whatever. So I don't think it's going to become the de facto, but I think you'll see a little bit more. And I think Quill's still trying to figure out the magic to get, because Lucho Acosta is a talented player, there's no question, but you can clearly see that he's out of sorts. His body language was terrible in this game.
Well, Yes, in this game in particular, it was a terrible game by him. I mean, and we knew this coming into it. And it's not like I spent a lot of time watching Lucho Acosta play for DC or Cincinnati. And I would be willing to admit that the vast majority, 99% of my watching him play was probably MLS highlight clips from Cincinnati games and DC games. So I only saw the magic moments of Lucho Acosta. But when he was being sold to Dallas, I remember reading a lot of people from Cincinnati going, okay, let me tell you what you're getting. You're getting a guy who isn't going to play any defense. And by the way, because he's always trying to do something creative, turns the ball over a lot.
Absolutely.
And when he does, he's not one to kind of like go back and try to win the ball back kind of guy. He's throw his hands up in the air and be mad. And I would also take note, the other really curious thing, or not curious, but alarming thing is that this game and the prior game, pretty poor, like two of his lesser showings, but it's also the two games without Petter Musa.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Fair. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So not him. He so clearly has an interesting little dynamic between him and Musa, which is in its own way, kind of its own problem on this team in a weird way. But when he doesn't have Musa, it's almost like he has no idea what to do.
Yeah. I mean, part of that too is that Musa takes more attention from center backs. And so all of a sudden, Diego Costa's a little freer. Diego did it again. Lucho Acosta's more free and can move around a little bit. You know, you really have to think of him as a Jason Christ style second striker and not think of him as everyone keeps calling him a 10. He's not a 10. He's that old off striker 10 that doesn't exist anymore. You have to think of two striker type systems. Like the 3-4-3 they did worked yesterday because Pedrinho became the real sort of 10. It almost really was more of a 3-5-2 in a lot of ways.
I'm guessing people are listening to this going, wait, this is how we used to describe Jesus Ferreira all the time.
Yes.
But Jesus is kind of different from that because Jesus will run back and play right back if he's not getting the ball.
Different problem, but yeah, same problem in a way. Yeah. Same issue that they had last season, you know, with that same sort of profile, and which is not to say it can't be solved. There's a school of thought, that's perfectly legitimate to say Quill needs to figure it out. He's one of your best players, absolutely. But that's why you're seeing these changing formations and why you're seeing like really weird, misbalanced hybrid shapes and flex thises, and like he's trying to figure out how to get the most out of a guy who can't play the role that he really would want him to play, which is like a real, I'm not going to call it a box-to-box 10, but this free 8, this top of the triangle player that you need these days. It's the spot where if you watch Man City over the last decade, De Bruyne played, I think Paxton could be fantastic in there. Leggett used to play like that. It can be done. They got some guys that could maybe do it, but then where do you do with Diego? God dang it. Then what do you do with Lucho Acosta? Like maybe you got to play him as a false wing. And if you're really going to try and go 4-2-3-1, but then you won't have that vertical component that he wants on both sides. So again, it breaks down. So Quill's got problems on his hands, and it comes from having a really great player and the way he wants to play. And like a lot of the other moves they did were built the way that he wants to play, except this one. This one doesn't fit the model. So, it's part of why this season is going to be, a roller coaster in a lot of ways as he tries to figure this out.
All right. So everybody just, if anybody's taking notes, it's episode 309 that Buzz officially established the quote-unquote Lucho Acosta problem.
One might argue it's a good problem, but it's definitely a problem.
It's a good old-fashioned luxury player.
Yeah. Dan, do you buy my shenanigans, my story? Smell what I'm cooking?
My nose is a little blocked up, but, I'll get a hint of it for sure.
Well, Dallas is on the road. So, by the way, I had totally forgotten this. We all made kind of predictions on an over and under on the number of points this team was going to collect on the 3-game road trip. And I think the over and under we picked was 4. And
I pushed because it was 4.
You said push. Dan said under, and I took the over. Look at me, positive Pete, taking the over, and here we are. They're at least at a push at this point. So
yeah, that's how I know you're an AI version of Pete, is that you were positive. Took the over.
No, if we're all just being honest, I just took the over because you guys took the 2 others, and I just wanted to. Not that I actually thought they were going to get 4 points in these 3 games.
I'm going to claim an assist here because if I predict something good, it doesn't happen. So you're welcome.
So to finish out the hat trick of road games, now they have to go to San Diego and face off against that team, which, by the way, if we're talking about teams and their home records, San Diego is 2-1-2, interestingly, at Snapdragon Stadium in sunny San Diego. Dan, what you got about El Diego's?
Well, considering I was 10 minutes late for the podcast and have not had a chance to do anything, not a whole lot. I will say San Diego started out really well. There was some talk about Mikey Varis as coach of the year originally, interestingly enough. They have lost the last 3 games, including a 3-1 loss to RSL, their first home defeat of ever, with our boy Sam Junker scoring an absolute screamer. And
good old Sammy.
And Buzz's client in his agent days, Diego Luna, getting a brace. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I saw a quote from Mikey Varis that sounded exactly like Nico. I know he was Lucci's coach, not Nico's, but he said, "We're a good team that's losing games right now."
That's very Nico.
I don't know, Dan. I know you said they'd lost their last 3 games, but did you note that they have given up 3 goals in each of those games?
One of them. Yeah.
9 goals in 3 games. That's pretty crappy.
Well, the funny thing is the win before that was a 3-0 win over Seattle. Before that was a 3-2 win over LAFC. So, I mean, there's going to be goals. We could have another 7-goal game.
That would be great.
So we should probably end up changing the name of Lucci Ball from Lucci Ball to Mikey Ball, because San Diego plays Lucci Ball. And the common denominator, of course, is Mikey Varis, as you mentioned. They on the season, they have 55% possession, and they average 580 passes a game, which is 150 more than Dallas per game. So on paper, this will be a game where the other team has the ball all the time, and Dallas will just sit and wait. They have 3 guys in the top 3 in touches in the league. Yeah, Jeppe Tervskov has 851 touches. Chris McVary has 847, and Patty McNair has 828. The top 3 touches in the league are 3 San Diego players.
So it's a team of ball hogs, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, they're gonna pass it around for 5,000 hours and make you try and chase it, and Dallas won't chase. They'll just sit there and wait. So this game could be incredibly boring, or if it gets opened up and Dallas goes vertical and gets behind them, gets some couple goals, maybe it'll be a high scoring game. So it's definitely a contrast in styles.
You got any predictions on a starting 11?
I've been thinking about it, and it comes down to that. What I just talked about is like, do you think which one of the tactics that's sort of working will match up best against San Diego? And I tend to think that they're going to try and, control the ball and pass it around and control the midfield. And Dallas is going to sit deep. And so I think that sit deep means you're probably going to try and go with this same narrow-ish diamond thing, this 4-3-2-1 1-2 that's been working fairly well. And that means really not a lot of changes, because a bunch of the guys that are in contention are kind of hurt. And so you're left with not a lot of choices. I mean, Abubakar's played pretty well, but I don't know if he's played well enough that you're going to sit Ibiaga again. You know, if you wanted to bench an outside back, there isn't anybody. You know, if you really think your outside backs are terrible, then you could go with a 3-4 again. But then Shatmore would still be on the field, and you're asking Anderson Julio to play 90 minutes as a wing back. So I think you stick with the same tactic, and you're going to end up with the same group. The only question will be, is Petar Musa, having missed 2 games, is it now time for him to come back? So we won't know until we get to like the injury report on Friday, you know, or if we can kind of, because even if he trains, that's not the same as like they're ready to put him back in there. So, you know, if you think Pedrinho played really, really well, maybe you try this new 3-4-3-ish thing and see what sort of happens. But I tend to think that as hot and cold streaky as Pedrinho is and as young as he is, it maybe it's not necessarily a good idea to put him out there against a team that's going to pass the ball 10,000 times. Right. So I think it's better to try and keep this formation that's kind of been working, and hopefully get Anderson Julio, you know, free from his normal wing sort of position. You know, the alternative would be to think, has one of my 3 central mids been so bad that it's worth it to try and bring back a Bernie, you know, on the left wing and try and get a second wing on there? man, I just don't know that that's really in the cards, because like the only wing that was at least somewhat serviceable was Leo Chu, and he's still hurt with a knee problem. We may not see a lot of him in the next 3 or 4 weeks, to be fair. So I don't think there's going to be many changes. You just got to hope Petter Moose is coming back, really. And which, not to say that Logan Farrington has been bad. Logan Farrington's been pretty terrific, but he's not Petter Moose, not yet. So I actually think there'll be no changes other than maybe Moose coming back.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I still want to flip Kayik. I want to make Kayik my 6 and make Ramiro, and is a little bit of a better passing. I want to make him the other 8 with Show and have Kayik be in the middle. I would love to see that happen. I'll be ready for that change anytime.
Is Kayike the only player in MLS that tucks his shirt in?
The only one?
Yeah, seriously.
He might
that's like regularly starting that you could easily identify. I was thinking about that. I was admiring his tucked in shirt, and I was like, I don't think I can think of another player in the league that's playing with their shirt tucked in.
Not off the top of my head.
It's a good look. Solid look. He just needs to go with the short shorts now. Go like old school Brazilian.
I don't know. He gives himself enough of a wedgie with how high he gets his waistband up.
Yeah. Okay. So the game in San Diego is Saturday, and that is at 8:15 on the Apple TV plus some majigger. There you go. Don't forget, the following Wednesday is the Open Cup game that Dallas does actually show on the schedule on their website, but really is not promoting in any way, because right there on the website, the next home match is not the Wednesday, May 7th U.S. Open Cup game, but the league game against Real Salt Lake. And if you happen to notice there's an Open Cup game on a Wednesday night up at Toyota Stadium, more power to you. But if you don't, they don't seem to mind that either. So,
yeah, well, we'll talk about that game on our podcast next week, because we'll record on Monday right before that. So.
True stuff. All right, very good. So there's all your FC Dallas talk. Since we're the podcast of football in North Texas, let's move on to other things. Trinity got a big win at the Cotton Bowl over Lexington, 3-1, and they outshot their opponent. Lexington, by the way, is in last place in what I think we can all agree is not a very high quality league. It's a brand new startup league. I'm not crapping on it. But Lexington is the worst team in a not a very good league, and Dallas outshot them 21-4. Holy cow.
In fairness, they weren't the worst team in the league coming into the game. DC was.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
And by the way, did we mention the fact that Missimo is out for the season last week?
We did. Yep,
okay.
we did.
I couldn't remember if we did that or not. All right. Well.
Yeah. Well, it looks like Gracie Bryan is going to be the answer to like who's going to replace Missimo in the shape. That's the person. They just plugged her in there, and that changes the least amount of other players. So it makes sense that you tried to do that rather than moving Cameron Lancaster. But they're getting a little bit healthier, and it's helping. They're finding their form. They're in second place, and they're playing the third place team this weekend. So that's a huge game again down at Tampa Bay Sun.
Yeah, the results really went their way. Tampa lost. Fort Lauderdale were playing Carolina. Carolina beat them like 4-2 in Fort Lauderdale. Could have done with that being a draw. That still leaves Carolina 6 points ahead, but with a game in hand. Like you say, it was they're just having a rough time of injury. I mean, the whole league is. Carolina had 6 players out at the weekend. Trinity had 10. Chioma Ubabagu was on the bench, but let's be honest, she was a breaking case of emergency sub, so you might as well say 11 players out. They are going through the ringer. Coach did tell me that she does expect a couple of players back, but when I asked her, like, hey, is this going to come down to who can just put an 11 out by the end of the season? It's like, yeah, pretty much.
I honestly think it's a case of like a lot of these players aren't used to playing this magnitude of games, this volume of games, because a lot of these players were bench players in other leagues or coming out of college. They're just not used to the load.
They're either playing Scandinavia where it's, a shorter season, winter season.
Yeah.
Playing college, shorter season again, or, like you say, they've been kind of bench players in NWSL. It's kind of difficult going to particularly a more traditional FIFA calendar style that, is kind of rare as rocking horse shit over here.
Well, I just was noticing because I was lamenting the fact, and I'm just going to admit it, I've yet to go to a Trinity game, and I really want to go to one. It's been a lot of the games have been on Saturday afternoon when the show's happening, and or just other things have gotten in the way. But I'm just now realizing they only have one home game left. They've got 3 road games in a row starting this weekend, and they play their final game of the regular season at home against Carolina, and that before the playoffs.
That could be the title decider.
Yeah, so I maybe that Saturday night, May 31st, it should be
Your last chance.
No, it should be
playoffs will be there too.
It should be Third Degree night. I'm suggesting the 3 of us should go together.
All right. I'll pencil it in.
I'm always there.
Interesting development, by the way. NWSL this has just announced that they're going to develop reserve teams.
I saw that.
Basically like the MLS Next Pro to their main league, which is, of course, probably a straight reaction to the Super League coming out, which is going to make, is really going to deplete the pool. It's going to thin out the pool. And it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with talent. I mean, it's going to be Division 2, not Division 1, but they probably NWSL probably looks at Super League as second to them. So it'll be an interesting question. What happens?
Oh, hey, if you want the most baller thing possible, Sealy Strawn played for Solar on Saturday morning, then went and scored the go-ahead goal on Saturday evening.
Can you imagine, just for a second, can you imagine an FC Dallas player playing for his academy team and then showing up and playing that night? Same day.
Paxton back in the day would have done that in a heartbeat.
Paxton would have done it.
Yeah, totally. All right, North Texas got another win. I didn't know San Jose was calling their next pro team The Town.
The Town, yeah. A lot. MLS has this push to name all their MLS Next Pro teams other names.
Wait, Kansas City's like, wait, hold on. You told us not to do that.
They don't play in that same slow park anymore, so they don't play there. So it's like they changed the name, that was a great name, which is a shame. But there's also these independent teams.
You do realize FC Dallas doesn't play in Dallas.
Right. No, I know. But that would be like we're FC2 at a stadium, but we play in Choctaw. I mean, it's like
it's a little bit reverse. You can play in a suburb and call yourself the metro area. You can't do the reverse there.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, Swope Park is the name of the facility?
Yeah.
Oh,
that's the park. The Swope Park Rangers.
Okay.
They played at Swope Park Stadium.
All right.
In Swope Park.
It was such a good name, though.
Yeah, it's like Crystal Palace, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a great name, and there are other independent teams that have names that are. So it can now get confusing about whose club is this? Is it an independent team? Is it whatever? It's what they want. So you get a team called The Town, which is not really helpful. It's not even named after a location, so it's The Town. Yeah. Anyway, so they're getting a couple players back healthy. Finally, so that's really helpful. They still got 1 or 2 guys playing out of position. Terry Scott scored. That's good. So good win. North Texas is in 6th place. They play Minnesota United, who's in 5th place this weekend. So that should be a good on the 2nd, technically Friday. So that should be a good game for people to watch if you're not going to be at the USL thing.
All right. And Texoma, I saw this.
So close.
So Texoma has only gotten 1 point all season. They're playing El Paso, which is 2 levels up from them.
Just one.
USL Championship.
And,
yep.
Oh, Texoma, that's right. Texoma's 1. That's right.
Yep.
And they held them to penalty kicks and ended up losing 6-5 to El Paso on PKs.
The question I think you're going to be interested in, Peter, is the attendance was 947, which is about half what they get for a normal regular season game. So now whether that decline is continuing because they have 0 or 1 point on the season, or whether it was because it was this Jägermeister Cup, which is hard for their people to understand or not, is an interesting question. But this was their special USL Tournament Cup thing. And so that's a little bit of improvement to hold them to 0. So they're taking steps in the right direction. They got a game against the 5th place team, Charlotte Independence, on Saturday.
Yeah.
I watched that penalty shootout from the quote unquote press box at the Cotton Bowl. That was agonizing. El Paso sees that for the first penalty save, and like, oh my god, they're actually going to do it. Their first win's going to be against a team in the division above. Granted, the reserve team of that team, but all the same. And then
they rotated a lot. That's fair.
Yeah. On both teams, but you get they get into sudden death, and then I don't remember who it was, but he just skies it. Wasn't pretty.
Interesting. The idea that Sherman, Texas has a professional team and just its ability to attract a regular crowd is fascinating to me from a business standpoint, because in my mind, Texoma and that ownership group has to put the investment in to build a quality team that wins fast, because you can see that thing lose steam really quickly if it becomes kind of a slow grow kind of deal, and they can't sustain a business on 1,000 people a game or 1,500 people a game or whatever it is.
Yeah, apparently, according to Wikipedia, they have like 66,000 people in the urban area in Sherman, which is the 418th market.
Yeah, no, Sherman's not even a rated metro.
I know. It's ridiculous. And I'm sure they're drawing people up from McKinney on some level, but like, this is a huge, huge test of the idea that you can put these pro teams in these smaller towns. This is way smaller than I thought that they were kind of targeting, but I know that these USL 1 teams, they won them in towns that are like 100,000 people, 150,000 people maybe. So, but this is still half that. So that's,
I mean, I know Austin College is in Sherman, but it's not like there are other things for people to do from a sporting standpoint in Sherman, Texas, in this time frame. So, I'm not surprised the attendance has been what it is, but it also concerns me that they haven't been able to pull more. Even if it's a cup game, I would hope for better. For them.
I mean, in some ways, they're going to have the same sort of struggle FC Dallas has on a different scale. FC Dallas,
sure.
Pull him from Dallas, pull him from Fort Worth, pull him from the north of the Metroplex, and then eventually settle on the idea of, okay, it's going to be exclusively Collin County, and then kind of changes back again. That Texoma region, you're talking about, if you're doing anything kind of geo-targeted, you're suddenly buying ads for 2 states, not 1.
Yeah.
You are. How far out do you want to go? Do you want it just to be Sherman? Do you want it to be Denison? Do you want it to be Durant? Do you want to somehow try and tie on to Choctaw and see what you can get there? I know some people from Salina that are going up to the games, and it's that weird perception that despite the fact that FC Dallas is 10 minutes straight shot, that Texoma is almost closer.
I mean, that area between McKinney and there is an exploding area. I mean, it's growing really fast, but like, they're way, way ahead of the curve in terms of getting an established foothold, like as the town grows around them, I'm sure is the idea.
Especially, if, obviously Bearcat Stadium's pretty old. I've not been there, but it's not the best pitch. It's not the best facility. They've got that new high school stadium that's going to be built in there. If they can kind of figure out whether it's their own facility, whether it's that new facility, something that's a little bit more appeasing to the casual fan, like FC Dallas is banking on this renovation a bit better than, hey, Toyota Stadium's kind of, it does look 30 years old. It does look 20 years old, whatever it is. That's, it's almost like they have to start slow.
Yeah.
Yep.
I guess. All right, they've got a game on May 3rd against Charlotte. And then last thing in the area is that the USL Dallas / Garland team is having their brand reveal party on Friday evening. I'm just going to say this as a media member. Inviting me to something on a Friday night is not likely to get me to attend. So I already had something planned. I've told them that I'm not going to be there, but if you're wanting the media to come out to your branding party, you may not want to do it on a Friday evening.
Yeah, it's definitely more of a fan event than anything else, but I'm going to head out there. It's got a concert involved in it, which I'm not sure I'm excited about that part, but I'm interested in seeing it.
But they were always going to tie on to that music made here thing. But and here's the thing: you talk about getting media out. If they want to get the people that cover soccer out, that's better than hey, we're going to do something at 10 a.m. on a Wednesday, when 99% of the people that kind of do stuff about soccer have a 9 to 5.
Yeah, but I don't know. I guess
if you want like a legacy media thing, then yeah, Friday evening, probably not going to be optimal.
Okay, but other than you and Buzz, who are you talking about, Dan?
Well, that could be, a Big D Soccer, Dallas Sports Nation, anyone of even of that ilk. Because, other than Pedro Silva and Paul at WFAA, you're not getting anyone out that's going to be from a company that's, a network that's going to give a shit.
Well, we'll see. Have we decided that Atletico is actually the name they're going to reveal?
No.
But the logo that came out was just fan made, so it's not Atletico, or we don't know.
Well, I suppose it could be, but when that Atletico trademark came out, and I sort of asked them about it, they intimated that they had done a lot of placement of things that were not real. To sort of like
spoof everybody,
muddy the waters of. I mean, it could be that Atletico really is it, and that people just happen to find the actual real one was the one they found, but the implication was not to put too much faith in that being the name.
All right.
And certainly we know that logo that circulated last week was a fan submission. We know that wasn't real.
We'll keep our fingers crossed that it's something awesome.
Man, I hope so. I hope it's good brand.
And not just the Garland City logo.
Yes, please. Not the Garland City logo. That seems stupid. Okay, well, I think we've done the business, boys. Anything else before we go? No? Okay.
Third Degree the Podcast is brought to you by listeners like you. If you enjoy Third Degree the Podcast or any of our coverage on thirddegree.net or our social media work, why not join us at patreon.com/third degree. Give us a little support, whatever level you might like to lend a helping hand. And if you join us at the Three Amigos level, you can join our terrific Discord community and all the great fans there. thirddegree.net, patreon.com/third degree. Thanks again for your support.
Dan, thank you, sir. Good to see you.
Thank you. And Peter, you should cancel your plans because I'm going to be at the brand reveal as well. We could have a whole Third Degree date there.
Oh, we could have. I'll look and see if I can get my plans changed.
At Intrinsic Smokehouse too. I mean, come on.
I will. Duly noted. Okay. I will see what I can do. Buzz, thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here, buddy.
And thank you, North Texas soccer aficionado type person of a very niche kind of interest. We'll speak to you next week on another edition of Third Degree, the podcast.
Are you Metro curious?
Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.